And then I realised what was happening was that they were trying to break into the van to get tools. So I went to get my phone, but I realised afterwards not to call the police, but to start making a video.
Iconic.
There's moments where you're like, I'm rotten.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even normal.
Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party.
Hello and welcome to Mandatory Redistribution Party. My name is Jack Lewis Evans.
And my name is Sean Morley. We will also be joined in this episode by our good friend and colleague, comedian and content hound, Jain Edwards.
Today's episode is about crime, simps, and crime simps.
What would you rather voyeuristically observe? A catgirl speedrunning Tetris online, or an unsolved series of crossbow murders?
It's an episode about our collective parasocial obsession with parasocial obsessions.
And if you've never tried having a parasocial obsession, why not check out our Patreon on patreon.com/mandatory redistribution party. There you will find a smuggler's hoard of unreleased content and mini episodes. But be warned, it is only for fans.
Only fans?
Yeah.
We've got an OnlyFans.
We've only got fans.
Ah, yes, that makes sense. No enemies. No enemies?
Oh, only one, but they'll never find us here.
Yeah. We're coming to you from deep in our impenetrable Mando's bunker. Precision engineered using everything we've learnt from the true crime genre. What's that?
Someone's chucked a bin bag in.
Ah, that does make sense, actually.
Nah, it's not on, I reckon. I think I'm just going to stand up and have a go. Oi! Oi, mate!
Sean!
Mate, you dropped your
Wait.
shit!
There you are, Sean Morley and Jack Lewis Evans. My enemies, my prey.
Jack, it's him!
Who?
My simp!
Hello, Sean!
Have either of you ever committed a true crime?
Yes.
And I want to rule out LimeWire here, because there's nothing... That's not really a
what
crime.
about Napster?
I'm ruling out uTorrent. I'm ruling out BitTorrent. I'm ruling out Magnet Links. I'm ruling out Library Genesis. These not only are not crimes, in my world, this would not be outlawed, and also just contains no narrative interest other than you telling me what media you stole.
What about Adblock?
The biggest crime. That is a crime.
I saw a YouTuber claim that the ads are the ticket to see the show, and if you're not paying for the ticket, you shouldn't see the show. Because using a
If you're going on the London Underground and you're not looking at every advert, sorry, you stole a train ride. You may as well hop the barrier.
yeah, that's what I think so. And that is a crime I have done. You know any crime, Jane?
I stole.
Here we go.
Here she is. Keep it. You don't give the cops anything on a plate here, Jane.
Don't say the business name. Don't give the address.
Okay.
Don't give a precise date.
Yeah. Hypotheticals.
No barcodes.
And also,
Okay.
just for clarification, Jane might be saying this as a joke. You don't know legally.
And we don't condone. Obviously, we condemn. We will be talking to Crime Stoppers
Yeah.
after this.
Yeah.
This podcast has a very clear
Just
ethical
a
line.
crime bad.
Sometimes.
Honestly. You're going to be on side
Oh,
when
nice.
you
Here
hear
we
this
go.
anyway,
A
so.
virtuous theft.
So we were at a fair at a high school in Rill. There was a little table, with cakes and sweets and stuff on it. And then me and my friend went over to the table, and one of the people on it said, "You can have a cake if you want, a fairy cake." So we're like, "Oh, great!" Ate the fairy cake. Suddenly wanted another fairy cake. Went over to the table, picked it up, you know, smiling like, oh, we'll have another free fairy cake. Different person on the table. We said, excuse me, what are you doing?
Shit.
And we didn't have any money. So we're holding these and we're looking into their eyes and looking at the cake. And we just decided to run.
Nice.
We just legged it. And I was like racked with guilt about this thing. It was awful.
So you escaped?
But we literally ran because it was the old ladies and stuff. But I still cannot work out why the first one was free.
Here's what happened. They were not working on the stall. They were just by the stall. And it was like a little old lady who's taking the piss out of the lady. She's like, bloody Doris here, shit cakes. She sees you two and goes, you can have a free cake if you want. And because you saw old lady buy cakes, you assumed this woman is in control of these cakes. That's what happened. That's what I think happened.
I feel like if you really just want to see interesting things happen around you, just walk around and tell young people that certain things are free. You'll just get to see interesting events unfold around you. That's free.
You just have one of them.
You can just have one of these.
Honestly, because but also like, why did we like go into blind panic? It was like, it was fully like fight or flight, just because she was like, excuse me, that 10p. You know what I mean? We just absolutely lost it and ran like all the way home, like literally like full pelt all the way home.
You having told that story of true crime, Jane, Manchester Redistribution Party has now officially become a true crime podcast. It just happened.
We've just expanded into the newest genre, independent crime recounting. We get the perpetrators just to confess under the guise that we will not put it out.
But that's like, I was going to say that's a heist. It's just basic theft. But it's in there. The type of crime I like as entertainment is heist. You know, like I can see your cake theft being remade with like, you know, big budget. It sets up, instead of just being two, there's like six. One of you is a contortionist. And you got to meet him.
Yes.
One of them's special skill is that they've got a Motorola Razor.
Codename call center.
Yeah. Madonna Mike.
So, but most of the true crime genre is unfortunately not about heists, which are good crime, but are about the bad crime of murder.
Life theft.
My friends who are women are way more likely to be listening to the true crime. Almost all true crime is about like women getting killed. And also you live in a world where you might get killed. If I lived in a world where there's just velociraptors everywhere and there was a genre of podcast that was like how to avoid velociraptors, what velociraptors do, I'd be subbing. I'd be like, I gotta know what this raptor's doing. Oh, what, they know how to open doors? Shit! That is my ignoramus explanation for the popularity of true crime as a genre among women. Other people can get killed by murderers, and other types of people can listen to true crime podcasts. But in general, that's what I reckon's going on. I open the floor.
I'm walking out onto the floor. I guess that's it. And do you know what? There are things in my life that I live fairly recklessly in terms of like, I often had to say to like my partner Barnaby, like, if someone kills me, it's not my fault. This is the life that I'm living. I'm getting like late trains, you know what I mean? I'm like doing all this stuff that in, you know, podcast world would be extremely stupid. But there are some little things that podcasts have taught me. Like I never used to, okay, this is actually maybe just stupid, but I never used to lock the back door.
Jane, what the fuck?
And especially, you know, like in the mornings, I'd take Rosie down, she'd have a wee. I'd be like, well, there's only a couple of hours and then I'm up, and then go upstairs. I listen to I'll Be Gone in the Dark. I listened to it on audiobook. It's a book, you know, about the Golden State Killer. He would come in at 6 o'clock in the morning and he would know that you hadn't left your door. There's things like that that have actually been helpful to me, potentially, that I've like changed my behaviour because I'm like, people can and will get in. And I guess that's why everyone listens to it. It's like comforting to feel like you're doing something about something that you can't control. If someone kills you, they kill you. And listening to these podcasts, I guess you're sort of feeling like you're making a plan or you're changing your life, you're learning different tactics of what you could do So you're right. I think what's weird though about the whole genre, and I know this has been brought up time and time again, is that it's white. It's very, very white. And it's mainly white fans, and
I guess that is a wealthier consumer base in the podcast market. So if you target white women as your audience, you are more likely to be able to sell your merch. And then it's kind of a feedback
possibly.
loop. That's everything, isn't it? The way normal news media, like the Daily Mail or whatever, reports on the way they're going to report about like sex workers or let's say like black victims of murder is going to be different, or they might just ignore it compared to like a white woman.
Well, I wonder as well if it's because true crime is very laced with police, law and crime proceduralism fascination, where quite often it's like, here's an example where in an instance, the police didn't figure it out, or here's an example where maybe the law and the courts didn't figure it out. Isn't that kind of weird? Isn't that bad that sometimes people get put away when maybe they didn't do a crime, or maybe this thing happened? And if you're from like a community that has a different relationship with the police, then sometimes they get it wrong, which is often they are targeting us. That kind of passive consumption of media, which is just interested and fascinated with the legal system, might not be so enjoyable for you to listen to on your downtime.
That could be good if the true crime people are getting radicalized into realizing that police suck.
From what I've listened to, they really aren't. They really. There's a. I mean, Jane, your mileage might differ on this, but I hear a lot of like people who like make true crime for YouTube on a weekly basis go, oh, and on this time the police dropped the ball. Anyway, here's how they dropped the ball, and it's, oh, what a disappointment. On this time, the police didn't investigate. In fact, the family had to contact them dozens of times to get them to look into the case at all. What a shame the killer got away. Oh, and on this time, the police did... Well, must have been another bad police force here because they didn't investigate. And there's never, like, curiosity about... Well, why did this happen? Why are there so many murders against this group? Why are the police so bad at just finding out? Why are these crimes not like prevented? Why are these things sort of happening and then justice happens afterwards? I don't think that's the point of true crime, and I don't think that's the direction it's heading in. In fact, on YouTube, true crime has, in some instances, been hybridized with makeup tutorials.
Oh wow!
So. It's a different kind of media completely.
I think one of the potential problematic messages of the true crime thing on that front of like seeing it as a means by which to understand a world that's like full of danger and then seeing how to mitigate it, like Jane, you say like locking your back door or whatever. It's almost like hustle culture brain, but for like not getting murdered, of like you just need to try harder to not get murdered.
This is why I always say if I get murdered, it's nothing that I have to live my life exactly as I'm doing it. And I'm not going to stop doing, going out late and all this sort of stuff. The stuff that they're trying to press upon you of like, take your headphones off and do this. Obviously not doing stuff mad, but then what is mad? Mad to them is like walking down the road at night.
What?
So I can't do it. I have to just say, if someone murders me,
I love the
it's not
fact
my
that you're
fault.
saying this to your spouse as if your spouse would be going, "What, you get murdered," and their first reaction would be, "What the bloody hell was she doing? Oh, for fuck's sake, Jane!" I opened the MEN.
That's how it seems
bloody
to me.
hell!
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the sense you get from a lot of these though, because it's always, she was walking across a field at night, and the idea of it, you automatically sort of go, well, why was she doing that? Yeah. As an audience, there's something in you that's like so motherly in a way, and so sort of like arrogant that you kind of go like, oh, I'd never do that. And then like 2 days later, you'll just be going,
I'll just pop out.
Exactly. Which is kind of, like when you're watching a slasher movie, like Halloween or something, a scream, and the character runs up the stairs, like, oh, don't go up, you're going to get shot, you're going to get stabbed if you go up there. It's very different doing that to like a silly, gory movie compared to something that's actually about people being killed in the world we live in.
Exactly. Because if you watch films, a woman walking down the road on her own is a scene. You're like, oh, I would never walk down the road on my own. Because it has a sense of it of like you're doing something wrong. It's something scary already. Like, just even that shot of just someone walking, or I mean anything. It's with like, you know, some creepy music or something. You're just going like, what are
That's
you doing?
the thing. I would say
Why aren't you
don't
just
play
at home?
creepy music.
Yeah.
Because if you, if you've been
okay.
doing that, Jane, I'm actually
love
really
that.
worried about your safety.
Yeah, I've been with a boombox on my shoulder.
With like slow
the
droning.
Exorcist theme tune.
Yeah, discordant piano.
Yeah, that's true danger there. Then Barnaby would be annoyed if if the police are like,
That's true.
sorry, James.
Yeah. 2 boom boxes. We
And
found
he's
these
like,
at the
she's out with my boombox again.
Just
completely ruined.
tapes of slow atonal music. But then sometimes it's just depictions of like a woman on her own in a house at night, and then they get murdered. But because it's like, the cinematography is like, this is a murder setup. It's just, there's no environment that we're told like is a completely safe environment for a woman to just exist. So you like, if a woman goes out at night at all just to pop to the shops, you got to think, she depressed. She's trying to end it. Is this it? It's like Shackleton,
This is it.
heading off into the Arctic.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Well, this is it. But sometimes you feel like that if you're going out. You do feel very like, well, this is me, Off I go into the world.
Have to get some
Who knows
Watsits.
if I'll be back.
Got to make my peace with my
This
life.
is it. One genre, a true crime podcast I won't listen to is when like people are like having a laugh. I don't know whether that's like a sentimental part of me that I'm not really recognizing, that's like buried down deep. But there's something about that I think is like wrong. If I got murdered, I wouldn't love like, 3 people chuckling and be like, hey, welcome. Anyway, today we're going to talk about this person who did this and this. The ones that I watch or listen to or, consume in audiobook form tend to be that sort of investigative sort of true crime stuff. And it's usually it's one person just going through like the facts and how things are worked out. But again, you're right. It's always that one bad apple police person. It's always framed like that. But I like that, especially I'll Be Gone in the Dark is just absolutely, when they actually start uncovering things and it's actually the reporters putting forward their information. They're playing the podcast in the court and being like, they found out all this and the police didn't even look into all of this like really obvious stuff. There's things like that about true crime podcasts that are just absolutely fascinating. And that, you sort of, if I had been exposed to things like this when I was a kid, I might have wanted to be a bit more like, I want to be a journalist or whatever. I want to be a murderer.
I want to be a victim. I want to get on one of these podcasts.
I think one of the big things with it is like, it's a popular, like murder stories and investigation of murder stories is like a huge genre and has been like since forever, since like stories are a thing for various reasons. And those stories tend to have like a process of investigation where you reveal things and there's twists and turns in the investigation. That makes for good storytelling because it's a mystery and it's a mystery being solved. Aside from it being about murder, that structure is like compelling for us as people and story enjoyers to listen to. And then the second aspect of that, related to what makes it like emotionally satisfying and as a piece of story structure, is that the villains of the piece tend to be these like fucked up individuals or a couple of individuals, right? Where like they have something interesting about their like villainous persona and their character and something, or maybe some messed up tragedy, like they were abused and there's some tragedy in their life that explains why they're doing messed up stuff. That is probably why you don't get a true crime podcast that just explores why 20 people die in police custody every year in the UK. Because it's like, it doesn't have those two things. It doesn't have the like mysterious outsider, strange individual. It just has, it's the institution of the police and prison system again and again and again. Like it's institutional, it's a structure rather than being about an interesting individual character. And that's harder. That's way harder to write. Even when someone is writing a story about messed up structures or something, they have to do it by exploring it through individuals more often than not, or have like an individual personify this stuff. And then there's no, once you've done 3 episodes about police in the United States shooting black Americans, it's like, oh, well, the mystery's been solved, hasn't it? There's no compulsion as a narratively, because really that's what we're talking about. It's like we're talking about murder mystery stories, but it has the extra thing of this is true, that thing that elevates any story, which is in the first thing someone comes up and says, this is a true story, and then you're like, oh fuck, what? It gives it another little spice.
definitely. I really have a thing about things being true or not. And even if I'm watching something that's based, films based on a true story, I will often, while I'm watching them, be going through and checking what was true, what wasn't. I'm kind of a nightmare like that. But so that is it for me, really. That's like a big compelling piece of them is like, it's true. Although the film Fargo absolutely did a number on me. That was so annoying. Me Googling. Fargo, true story.
It's me watching Chernobyl.
This is it. Oh, honestly. Let's not get started. But no, I think that, that is very compelling. And like what can happen in the world that just seems so out of the realms of possibility. I don't know whether I have like a blunted sense to danger or whatever. Because, I said that there was 2 guys with balaclavas outside my window the other night.
No, what the fuck?
Basically, about 1:30, I can hear banging in the street, and I'm like, bloody, neighbours slamming their doors, and whatever, getting all angsty about it. So I come over, and I just whip my curtains fully back, and there is 2 guys in the street looking at me with balaclavas on, and one of them is sat on top of my neighbour's van, and the other one's just stood there, and then they both point at me. The nightmare situation. I'm like stood in my pajamas. And I was just looking at it, and I couldn't work out what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Because he was on top of the van. I was just properly like, why is my neighbour just on his van? I thought it was him and a friend for some reason. And then I realised what was happening was that they were trying to break in. They'd cut away a bit of the door and they were trying to break into the van to get tools. So I went to get my phone, but I realised afterwards not to call the police, but to start making a video.
Iconic.
There's moments where you're like, I'm rotten.
Yeah.
Like that's not even normal. And I guess that's like making your own little true crime thing. They were obviously gone in like 2. They obviously just let down and went as soon as I went to go get my phone. But I guess that's like my little miniature true crime.
It's like a story out of one of those boomer Facebook images about how society is all rotten, and it's just a million people looking at a crime through their phone that's like really preventable, and it just says at the bottom like, what society is now.
What did I think they were going to do? Like just stop and wait, and then I get my phone, I'm like recording like while they're just looking at me. I don't understand.
So what happened? Did you start recording? Then what happened?
There's like a recording of me completely in the dark going, oh my God, right?
Are you recording your own face?
I don't know whether I was like...
Live react.
Honestly, but what's weird is that I was like, I wasn't really necessarily scared. So what was I doing? Was I performing?
Wow.
I was going like, oh my God, there's 2 guys outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then obviously pull back the curtain again. Obviously they'd gone. Why did I think they were still going to be there after we've just like had an interaction where I'm like, what are you doing? So I don't know, just proper like content brain rot. It's really weird. Didn't get any good shots.
I don't know though, right? Because before the smartphone, they'd be like, police will take at least half an hour, so plenty of time to get the tools. But now in the era of TikTok, they're like, this could get true crimed in like 2 minutes. We better go. So you saved the tools, I think. Those tools, at least 20% of those are yours by right.
Yeah, you should actually knock on the guy. Go knock on and say, you actually owe me a little bit
one
of money.
wrench.
Yeah. Can I have my pick? Open the van. Let me look.
Yeah, he haggles you down to a hammer.
I would have... Well, this is a sad indictment of society. Is that I was expecting like a little cake. I was expecting.
You got nothing.
I thought I would be rewarded.
Yeah, but listen, cosmically, you're in cake debt, aren't you? So you're not going to get you're in cake. You're net gain. And somehow the van owner knows that.
But you never know, right? Because those people could have been looking at the tools in the van, and someone just went by and just went, "Those are free. Those are." You could have that.
That's true.
And then someone looks at them and they just run all the way home.
The police in this case were terrible.
The police are allowed to do this.
The police,
law enforcement.
the police.
The police.
The police in this case were terrible.
The police are allowed to do this. The police. Law enforcement.
The police in this case were... Authorities, as per usual in this case, didn't really jump on this straight away. They were like, I'm sorry about it, but there's not a lot that we can get done. It's nighttime. I don't know what you expect us to do, but, we will do something eventually.
The police told Sarah that her best shot was to bring as much media attention on Alyssa as possible, as the authorities seem reluctant to do anything about it themselves.
The police work in this one is beyond upsetting, truly. This should piss you off. If it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you.
To be honest, it was a very strange move, and just like with so many of the cases that we cover on this channel, they really did not do a good job with their investigation.
And as a heads up, I think you're going to be very, very upset with the way that law enforcement handled this case. I really do like to be fair to law enforcement. If they do a good job, I like to shout them out, give them their flowers, but I also have no problem shining light on their failures.
And you guys are not going to believe what the police's response was. They literally said, you've already used up a lot of our time and resources, and then they just brush it aside. And
her parents contacted the police, and the police didn't actually do anything. They turned around and said Jennifer was an adult. If she wanted to go missing, she could.
So as I said, on the 13th of May, they called the police, and basically the police didn't do anything.
But the police did not get around to reviewing the CCTV footage until about a month after he disappeared. By that time, nearly all of it was gone.
Now, the police didn't actually take Patty's call seriously at first, because Tara was an adult, she was 19 years old, and the police said basically if she wanted to disappear for a few hours, she could.
At midnight, that same night, she called the police and reported him missing, and the police kind of dismissed it. They were like, he's probably just out with a girl, but his mum did not believe that. The police in this case were terrible, and I was so frustrated reading this case, and I'm sure you guys are going to be as well. They have been accused of mishandling evidence, contaminating evidence, and also withholding evidence.
They also went to the police. They wrote a written statement with any information they had, more photos of Rachel to try and get the police off their asses. The police told them to search under their house just in case she went under there and got stuck or something. I'm not sure, that just seems like a really weird, the police are just saying, go do something else, we're not looking into this, we think it's stupid, go check under your house. And the Barbers did check with a torch, they went under there, but she wasn't there.
His family started to worry, and they contacted the police, who basically said, okay, you need to relax, and they said they weren't going to do anything, and they theorized that he had just walked home, but none of his friends had seen or heard from him, and he wasn't with any of them. So his family were not good with this. They were really worried about him. The police were being super unhelpful, so they had to organize their own search party. I feel like they really hindered the case. I'm sure you guys have noticed that correlation as well, that it's always missing people, unsolved murders, shitty police work. If there's one thing I've learned from Mystery Mondays, it's that it is crazy how often these cases are butchered by the police.
You would think police would think this whole thing is weird, but shockingly, police believed them and ruled the whole thing as self-defense. And it's just so odd, because if they had looked into what was going on with Charles and Lori, they would see that, they were trying to get a divorce, that Charles had been trying to get her put into a mental institution because he was so worried about her mental condition. It's just odd that they didn't look into this background at all.
Because I think the police were kind of useless, which seems to be an ongoing problem in all of these unsolved mysteries, is the police doing a really shitty job.
And the police never sealed this as a crime scene, which is so odd.
And that was not even the only contamination problem. There was actually footage of them touching the body without any gloves and touching evidence without any gloves.
Because so often, the evidence just gets all messed up. They also discovered that the investigative team that was working at the crime scene didn't switch their shoe covers when going into room to room. You're supposed to change it, because then you're tracking DNA from the living room into the bedroom, or, something like that.
And the general belief is that the police lied to her, said she failed so that they could extract a confession, and legally, The police are allowed to do this, right? There's 4 specific instances where law enforcement is legally allowed to lie to you. They can lie about having your fingerprints at the scene of a crime. They can lie about having an eyewitness. They can lie to you about their ability to obtain a search warrant. Police can also lie to you about the severity of your sentence if you're charged with whatever crime they're accusing you of, because these police officers will use whatever tools they can in order to get you to confess and make their jobs easier and solve the crime. And I understand it. I'm not mad at them for it. The police, law enforcement, the police
in this case were terrible.
The police are allowed to do this. The police, law enforcement,
The police in this case were terrible.
the police are allowed to do this. The police, law enforcement,
The police in this case were terrible.
the police are allowed to do this. The police, law enforcement,
The police in this case were terrible.
the police are allowed to do this. The police, law enforcement.
Sean, Jane, have you simped? Have you ever found yourself simping?
When I was a child,
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I basically was completely obsessed with Blackadder.
Right.
I mean, like, fully. I don't know if this is modern simping, whether this counts.
Okay.
But I was, like, obsessed with all the cast members in, like, in a big way. In a way that even I didn't understand. And I had this friend, Larissa, and she wrote into, like, everything. You know, that you could have, wish list, or like want to meet this person, or you know, like Live and Kicking used to do, would you do this to my friend? And she would always write in and be like, could my friend Jane meet Tony Robinson? You know what I mean? It was like that. I was just totally obsessed, and I would have like dreams about like me and, you know, Rowan Atkinson would go and find my teddy, and like everything was Blackadder themed, Blackadder based, and it was all about the cast. And so I guess that's simping.
Imagining yourself as a child going over the top of the World War I trenches with Blackadder.
I would have absolutely loved that.
They're trying to set up for that really bleak over the top bit, but you're just there like an extra, just trying to get a selfie.
Looking directly into the cameras.
Yeah, give it a thumbs up. So are we talking like childhood crush on the actress, or are we just talking like a pure platonic fascination?
For me, well, I think that's the only time, because I guess I hit teenage years and just became completely cynical about, you know, I don't have that about anybody anymore. I really, like, even, you know, you in comedy, you meant to admire people. I don't have that part of me, or I don't know what it is. I don't know what kicked in, but I don't have it at all. Yeah.
Sounds like you became incredibly healthy.
That sounds good.
Like you became incredibly strong.
Yeah, you didn't go through puberty. You ascended.
So where do you want to say the line is between, like, okay, we're talking about things that existed when we were growing up. Simping didn't exist. You could have a crush on someone from afar. That person could be on telly. Is that simping? Or is simping something that can only exist in the last, like, 10 years of super internet parasocial?
I think you can invent a thing and then see it in the past when you didn't know about it now. Like,
that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have, if Twitter would have existed, I would have been, you know, constantly, hello, I really love your show. How do I send you money? You know what I mean? I would have been that person. Yeah. So it's like, I know that I did have that in me once, which would have manifested as simping. Because I guess it is like, it's a way of life, really, isn't it? It's like it's something inside you, simping.
It's a calling.
It's a calling.
Well, calling and a hobby.
Well, it's like being sort of affectionately dedicated to someone who does not particularly reciprocate that, or may not even fully know you exist. It's like a super one-way emotional thing. And that is kind of similar to fandom, but it has... Yeah, what is the extra thing on simping beyond fandom, beyond intense fandom?
Or maybe you're only truly a simp when you're like, oh, I'm affectionate towards you and warm towards you, I feel positive towards you, and I'm always here. But then the mystery ingredient, the special spices, and therefore you owe me.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jane could only really enter the simp category if like Blackadder had a chat window, and then if anyone badmouthed us saying like, "Oh, Baldrick's shit in this episode," Jane would come in and be like, "You're banned."
Yes, and I'd make a little fiefdom like of me in the chat. That would be great.
So I guess we're talking about parasocial relationships.
That's not a new concept at all, right? Parasociality was examined as soon as the TV came out. People are like, people are going pretty bonkers for these tiny people on the screen. Wake up, there's people outside, there's people everywhere. These screen people can't be your friends.
Or even before that, was firm belief in the divine right of kings simping? You know, like Russian peasants used to have like a picture of Tsar Nicholas II or whatever, and like a little, and be like, oh yeah, like a shrine.
My Irish Catholic grandmother with her favourite saint, who Saint Padre Pio.
Simping for Pio.
Well, so Pio was one of the few ordained saints to have stigmata. He was a stigmata guy.
Wow, okay.
It really impressed my nan. Loved that.
It's stigmata when like the wounds of crucifixion just like magically happen to you.
Yeah, and the best stigmata is if they are open wounds, so they're fully, you're free bleeding at the cathedral.
What the fuck?
She would say that. Well, she still does say this.
Can we
she's
get her
not dead. I'll stick her in a segment. Check. She's very squeamish that I'm recording it.
Okay.
So we'll see. But she believes that Padre Pio will send her little messages through the smell of oranges. But me and several other family members do say, you do keep a bowl of oranges near the door to the kitchen, which you often keep open, which creates a draft in the house.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's multiple. I don't want to be like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Myth-busting.
I think there's a few explanations for the smell, but I think that's a simp relationship. Definitely, much like a Twitch audience or a live stream audience, they're definitely like reading signs and symbols that are for them that I think are illusory.
Well, that's it, because you have to be careful if you do Twitch streaming and stuff. You feel like a little bit like you have to be careful, because also in the simp, what's like the simp or simper relationship. In that relationship, you also don't want to hurt people. If you are the receiver of simping.
The simpleton. The simply.
If you are the simpy, then you don't want to hurt people. So it's like you're trying to not give off that feeling of like I'm like here for you in a normal way and no more than that. You can do what thou wilt, but know that I'm not giving you any of those signs.
Yeah.
But how do you get that across without sounding arrogant or cruel or...
Without specifically pointing them out and saying, you specifically, our relationship is nothing more than normal, and if you exceed that boundary, you will be destroyed.
Okay, listen, Jane, so you're like, excuse me, I'm just going to go on stream. Jane Lover, please listen up.
Jane Lover 69.
Yeah, look directly into the 69.
You are on your final warning.
The 69 isn't any reference to anything nice. It's exclusively their birth year, like it's a boomer sim.
Yes.
They lost their job because of the COVID. They're just watching Twitch all the time.
I'm filling the gap. It's fine.
But they tried to ban it, like Twitch and a bunch of other places tried to ban that stuff from chat and comment sections, didn't they? Like you can't say simp.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Oh, what, like they turn simp is a slur? Is that the...
I think simp is a slur. Yeah. Yeah. Because there would be people calling in a chat, there'd be people accusing other people of being simps. Simp wars.
I think accusations of simping exceed real tried and true cases of simping, which in turn creates a culture where it's better to be safe and to be hostile to the person whose content you like. Because it is better to be a weird aggro person than a simp in the hierarchy, in one of those Victorian hierarchies of all things on earth between God to snails. Simps are worse than aggro posters. Have you ever felt that in like, analog 90s growing up time, that you were unnecessarily distant or aloof from someone who was either popular or attractive or had some kind of fame because you were worried about being perceived as being a toady or something.
Totally. No, I'm always worried about that. I don't know whether it's a pride thing in me or because I just don't have any simp DNA anymore. I must just like shred it, and then really, I just really don't like that idea that I would be perceived as like, oh, you're a bit famous, so I'm being so nice to you. But I think also we're tarnished with the idea of like networking, and you know, we're not really normal people, or we sort of live in this weird world of glad-handed and stuff like this, which you see as negative. I guess like if I was like a child and maybe I'd grown up never wanting to do comedy or have anything to do with that sort of industry, just lived a life, I wouldn't have that perception of it maybe. That it's like, oh, that's so smarmy. Oh, look at, because I've seen people in comedy do that, where you literally are like normal with one person, maybe they're acting like they can't really be bothered with them, turning round, and maybe it's like, you know, even a semi-famous on the way up comedian, and it's like an explosion of, you know, glad hand, like warmth and so nice. Oh, wow. Oh, we're so on a level. And I think it's seeing that, and it just sticks in your head like, it doesn't even seem human. Yeah. So,
you have just unnetworked me. I have now labelled you as a bonker troll. I like, you know, you're at a gig and then someone's like either blanking you or it's just like being an arse. And then you go on and you have a good gig and then they're really nice to you.
I should get to know this person. They might achieve something that I could then get a crumb from.
It's like, well, I haven't erased before my set. Why do you think this is going to work? What are you doing?
Well, because if you were a pure network brain, you would also erase that, you know? Because you go, now I'm allowed this contact. No, there's another email address for the notebook. Finally, I've earned it now with my good set.
Add on LinkedIn.
Honestly. Yeah, you get just so much of that. But when you see it, I think when you're a normal-ish person, you're not like a networker, then it does look like, it looks like simping. So
networking is simping.
Networking is simping.
Networking is simping.
Book published by Verso.
Yeah, called Business Simps. A guide out of capitalism.
I think we talk about the line between fandom and simping. There's also the line between stalking and simping, which feels like the other. I feels like for me there's like a hierarchy where there's like fandom, simping, and then up a notch at the top is stalking. Maybe the notch above that is like killing someone. John
Cannibalism.
Lennon, eating John Lennon. But I had a stalker in high school.
What?
No. The first I found out of it, right, was that I was taken in to like the deputy head's office and I was shown a locket, and what was inside the locket?
No.
My own hair.
What?
So,
how did they know it was your DNA test? What is this story?
Well, it has numerous layers. This was just my first interaction with it. Right? Basically, this kid who I was in like year 12 or something. I went to sixth form in high school, and it was like a year 7 kid who was in this like from the same village as me. They were apparently hardcore obsessed with me. Used to like talk about me and draw pictures of me loads, to the point that they're like pastoral whatever registration teacher became like worried about it because all their teachers were like, this kid is obsessed with Jack Evans. I was obviously just like completely unaware of this, but I had basically been being stalked to the point that someone had somehow obtained some of my hair.
Oh my God.
That someone had some of your hair as well, but then like you start going to the logistics of like, how did that happen? Has someone covertly snipped hair off me? Like on the bus. And then how would you do that and not, you know, like on a school bus that's like rammed, the bus is from like 1962 and it goes at 20 mile an hour and it's at double capacity because they're like, well, a child is half an adult, so if it says it can only take 60 people, it can take 120. Like that packed, and then someone's got a piece of my hair.
You had like quite big curly hair though, didn't you?
Oh, big style. It was like a massive, you know, I listened to Mel.
There you go.
It wasn't right. Yeah, it could plausibly be done. This is why I wasn't like, oh, this
behind
can definitely.
You on the bus.
Like my reaction wasn't, how that's impossible. My reaction was, oh, okay, yeah, like that could be my hair. I never spoke to the kid, but I was told who the kid was, and there was like some intervention that took place, there was like a big debate over whether they should still be able to take the bus. It was fucked
Did you
up.
have any interaction with this kid? What age are we talking?
No. Like year 7, when I was in year 12.
Were they in love with you?
Well, no, because love is to be reciprocated, right? Otherwise, it's,
You know what?
you know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know,
but
they must have been.
did they want to hug and kiss you, is what I'm saying?
I don't fucking know. Probably. Ugh. Reverse pedo.
Well, you could also, like, they could be planning you as a murder victim, you know. It's hard to know what the...
Yeah. Well, that's where I went at the time. I was like, this kid's going to kill me. I'm going to be murdered by a child. Yeah, pretty fucked up. Wow. I haven't thought about it for a long time. But people project stuff onto people, right? They did some research where some researchers just got women to go into like a lecture hall that weren't actually on the course. Some of them went to all of the lectures, some of them went to half the lectures, some of them went to a quarter of the lectures, and then they asked a bunch of the men on the course which of these women they find most attractive, and they literally, the only thing that determined the one they found most attractive was the one that went to all the lectures. So she's just seeing, I'm like, well, you just see me on the bus all day, and I'm very tall and have like big ginger hair. It's just that.
That's really useful to know.
Like a baby duck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I will follow this person until I die.
Absolutely fucked up. I mean, that's not simping. That's if you're taking someone's part of someone's body.
Yeah, that's next level.
Yeah, that's fucked. Would not recommend.
I've never had anything like that.
That you know of.
That's true.
This is
my
my
also
point.
have big curly hair. Ready to be cut. There's numerous reasons why I use the spelling of my name that I do. Work, don't want new people know. You know, I like to be able to control flow of information about myself. But honestly, because people Google you for no reason. I've worked with people who've come in the morning and gone, I Googled you last night, you're a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, who on earth would ever admit that you've gone home and Googled a coworker that you have not that much to do with?
People?
Just like anyone's name, you just run it through Google. It doesn't make any sense. So
no, I've got a real bad habit for doing that. You can find really weird stuff. I've got a terrible habit for that.
Oh my god!
It's not as good as it used to be, but about 5 years ago, you could just find everything out about anyone. It's right there. It's information superhighway. I don't do anything with it. I'm not making ransom notes. I'm just like,
Sean, what is in that locket you've got around your neck?
It's just all of your hair. It's just bulging with the hair of all my friends.
But would you walk up to one of those people and say, I did that last night, I found this? I mean, unless they were like, you know, on the register or something like that, you found out. But if it's just like inane information, I think you wouldn't sort of walk up to someone and go, I did this to you.
Yeah, so your point isn't...
I would hide it.
Yeah, exactly. Jane's point isn't don't Google. Jane's point is don't reveal the Google.
Exactly.
Yeah. We all Google, but it takes a certain kind of freak to be like, hey, someone I'm merely acquaintances with, here's some trivial information about your past that I know.
So this is why I changed the spelling, because everyone calls me Jane anyway. And I've had that before where a guy has had to drive me to a gig. You know, I'm bad at replying, and I'm going to reply to you on the day for a lift. He wouldn't take that. So he must have Googled me, found my LinkedIn, found the company I worked at, and this was like a middle-aged man. You know, I'm 20, I'm 21 or something. We're going to
Jane Lover 69.
Honestly, it was so weird. He like emailed me, I didn't reply yet. It's not time yet. We've got until the day, and then I'll say. But then he found out where I worked, rang my work. I shouldn't say the name, but it was like it was a nickname, and he used the nickname on the phone. So let me find a good equivalent. He was named basically after a football team. Manager comes downstairs and goes, someone just rang called, let's say, FC Evans.
What Evans?
I'm just looking at you.
Now we know why you can't say the name.
It wasn't
the
me.
host.
Yeah, that's why Jane's getting nervous.
I'm trying to be polite.
Oh shit, this was actually Jack.
And I'm like, what? Because obviously that makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, because it's not in my head.
Yeah.
And says, he's going to pick you up. And obviously, because I'm like, what? What does that even mean? It makes me look like I've got some sort of mad life going on in the background. You know what I mean? Because no one there knows I do comedy, that it's for a gig.
Yeah.
Someone with like a strange name is going to... But the fact that he so easily could have found My
Yeah,
work number
fucked
really
up.
frightened me because I was like, God, if someone had like a vendetta, out of nowhere on me.
Here's a strange kind of simping. Simping for killers. Crime simps.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest, baddest simps of all. And I understand the idea of maybe not crime simping, but like murderer fascination.
Yeah.
Because you think somewhere in that, we understand, like, is the double helix that explains all crime. And if we hagiographize them enough, we'll understand how to prevent all murder.
Yeah.
Killers simp for other killers. So
The big serial killers and shooters are like, the ones we hear about are mostly American. And whenever it happens, it becomes a media circus. And you also hear all these reports of like, don't cover it excessively in the media. Don't show the killer's face. Don't talk about in detail what they did because it encourages copycat killing. And I think to a degree, media generally has started to fall in line with this. Not amazingly, but this advice has been taken on board, which is why now there's like an army of like DIY serial killer worshippers that have like got into full force of being like, if you commit a serial murder, you will be remembered forever by our 100,000 Patreon subscribers.
Here's another fucked up thing. In the same way we can talk about listening to these things to find out how to avoid it, you could just be listening to them and be like, right, don't do that, do that. I saw some messed up statistic which has to be made up, and it was about like the IQ of captured serial killers being like really low, as much as IQ is like completely fucking problematic in and of itself. But it's basically saying like, well, these people only get caught because they are terrible at serial killing. Like the people who are good at it, they're listening to the podcast, they're like, right, I've got to buy gloves.
Countdown to a serial killer being caught, and they go on their Spotify account and it's wall-to-wall true crime. They're like subs. They're subscribed to every single podcast and they were simping for all the hosts. And people were like, oh, it was that weird guy from chat. It was the weird guy I kept DMing.
Shit, Jane Lover 69, no! Mandatory Redistribution Party was created and produced by Sean Morley and Jack Lewis Evans. Our title theme was created by Ella G. Our guest this episode was Jain Edwards, who I recommend you follow on Twitter at Jain_Edwards. That's Jain. And whose many excellent projects can be found at www.jainedwards.com. Thank you so much for listening to Mandos. If you enjoy the show, please help others find us by sharing this episode on social media. You can also support our work over at patreon.com/mandatory redistribution party, where we have extra content. Thank you very much for your support. It is honestly hugely appreciated. Till next time, may your crimes be true and your simps safe.